everything, of course. And welcome to our exclusive, only second ever sprint reaction over here to the second sprint race of the 2025 FIA Formula 1 season, round 6 of the championship. Of course, the Miami Grand Prix, which proved to be a real thriller, really one of the best sprint races definitely in the history, because we only started at the beginning of the current decade. And I have to say, it was a fantastic race, with lots of changes of the positions, and it definitely felt much longer than the 18 laps than it was actually in the end scheduled than to be. So over here in this race reaction, we will tell you everything about it from the perspective, of course, of Ferrari's fastest driver, Ferrari's biggest fan as well. We will take a look at how that standings was done, obviously, on the Formula 1 website, with regards to, the sprint results. And we will tell you about so many penalties that were simply handed out after the sprint race finished, so that you know exactly who finished everywhere. We will also talk about some controversy, but mostly from the position of Ferrari's fastest drivers and Ferrari's biggest fans. We will take a look at what we could have done to obviously win the sprint race, which I think we've gotten within a whisker of it. But in order to win, you first have to get to the starting grid, right? And yeah, I have to say, during the sprint qualifying, it was a bit disappointing to start 6 and 7, but it was refreshing to see a new pole sitter, the youngest ever pole sitter for the sprint race, not for a Grand Prix race yet, of course. Andrea Kimi Antonelli, of course, being the one, the new 18-year-old driver for Mercedes-Benz, who replaced the new Ferrari driver, Lewis Hamilton, who excels at sprints. So overall, yeah, it was nice to see a bit of a history made. And yeah, we were all looking forward, to the race. I mean, the Friday so beautifully in Miami, fantastic tropical United States, with the sun shining, right? With the blue skies, the Miami International Autodrome looked absolutely amazing. You wouldn't have guessed that on Saturday the weather would change so much, and yes, so it did. Started with a big downpour, obviously around the noon when the sprint race was supposed to take. And as I was saying, in order to win, of course, you have to make it to the starting grid. And unbelievably, and I think this is really, on the driver, Charles Leclerc, obviously our leading driver in the championship, and has been with us obviously for now the 7th season. Made what I believe was a mistake, simply going a bit too fast, on that middle straight, that goes from that Miami Marina, which by the way features 2 new swimming pools, I believe. They were not there, before. So it's absolutely fantastic, the track. When it's, sun is shining, you can go, for example, swim in these swimming pools. There's another swimming pool, obviously heading, up to the back straight. I believe some of them might be in the Hard Rock Stadium vicinity as well. So overall, yeah, it looks really great. But yeah, you could have seen from that swimming pool, you could have heard a loud bang as Charles Leclerc impacted with the other wall right up there in that middle section, which normally is basically a flat out straight with the DRS open. Obviously there will be lots of standing water, as the cars were making their way to the grid. But because with the rain, expected to ease off even and in 20 minutes, pretty much everybody, I believe bar Sainz, decided to go for the wets. And yeah, Leclerc on the intermediates got aquaplaning. I could hear from his onboard that he was actually simply going a bit too fast. He was not really cruising, he was accelerating. Try to turn left, right, because it goes, there's like a little left king, right king, and yeah, the car wouldn't turn in, because obviously the intermediate tires, despite having the tread, they are not slick tires, obviously, but the tread is not as expansive and not as deep as with the extreme wets. So he simply had no way to turn in, because his intermediate tires were not in contact with the road. So this is what happens with the aquaplaning. Leclerc called it total aquaplaning, which means that he probably couldn't turn with any front or rear wheels, impacted with the wall, and destroyed the right side of the car. Obviously the rear wing also badly damaged. Was still on the car, but you couldn't race with that. The bad thing was obviously that will be interesting to see if the car can be repaired, and especially if it could be sent back obviously to the pits, right? So we had to wait then for the sprint to start, and obviously in such conditions, and having Leclerc that impact with the wall, which ruled him out. We only had Lewis Hamilton, who was now running 6th, but yeah, the the formation lap started under the safety car because there was just so much standing water. And no wonder really, even though I felt like, what are the extreme wets for, right? So in the end, the starting procedure was suspended. So the cars would then line up in the pit lane. There was a wait of about 15 to 20 minutes, then the weather cleared up, and the cars went out, and the race proper really started with what was then lap 3 of 18. And it was an interesting start. Hamilton, kept his 6th position, kept out of the trouble. But I have to say, Oscar Piastri, that was a little bit of a tough move on Andrea Kimi Antonelli, the youngest pole sitter in Formula 1 history, who, I do believe had every right to the corner, just like Piastri did. Obviously, Piastri being on the right-hand side, because he qualified second, championship leader, he has gotten slightly better start, in these intermediate conditions. Obviously, it's quite slippery. So not as straightforward, and he attacked the apex, but this is not so dissimilar to, for example, what Verstappen did, and for which we so despise him, right? Because that's a bit of a dirty driving. But the stewards didn't punish it. The great thing was that then obviously that freed up the McLaren's with the Verstappen and the pole sitter Antonelli fell into Russell's and obviously Hamilton's close. But as the race progressed and as the track was drying out, was our pace disappearing, at least with Hamilton. Who then, for a while was able to keep up with the Benzes, but then wasn't able to keep up that well, was about 4 or 5 seconds behind. And, it's very interesting because normally when you are racing with this beautiful Scuderia Ferrari SF1000T 818 Formula 1 Racing Simulator, when you are doing it in F124 and soon to be released F125 game, I'm sure you can't wait, right? You do know that when the DRS is enabled, that kind of symbolizes that the track is indeed, dry enough, and you should stop for the dry tires. But only Tsunoda stopped because obviously he was running in the back for Red Bull Racing. Again, terrible sprint race for him. But Hamilton made that call. At least that's what he said. But I thought it was great from Ferrari, great from Hamilton, super pit stop. I noticed that again they tried to clean I believe the radiators of Hamilton's car as well. 2.0 seconds. The pit stops are absolutely amazing. Forza Ferrari. That was really great. And yes, we thankfully put on the set of soft tires. And a lot of the cars, changed from intermediates to mediums, which I didn't understand because you only got 5 or 6 left. Of course, you put in the softs, right? And it really made Hamilton fly. Like he immediately went off. He was taking seconds, off each sector of the drivers. And even though he fell to like 15 or 14th place, within 2 or 3 laps, he was attacking Verstappen for P3. And he overtook him because you won't believe the bad luck of Antonelli, even though obviously he is an enemy racing for Mercedes-Benz. I have to say, he was really hard done by. And, it's kind of refreshing to have a young teenage boy being polite as opposed to being a spoiled brat, like, for example, Verstappen was and still is, right? So, because, again, didn't take it that tough, but hey, Verstappen was exiting the pits, right? Antonelli was just coming in, and Red Bull just released him right into the path of Antonelli, who then, did well to steer off. So, there was a collision in the pit lane. Very, very unusual to see. Very foolish, very dangerous from Red Bull as well. But the great thing was that then Verstappen came out with damaged wings, so Hamilton easily ate him. And if it wouldn't be for a crazy move by Lawson, as you will see in a minute, on this beautiful Scuderia Red Ferrari iMac, when we will take a look at the standings of that sprint race. If it wasn't for Lawson tapping the rear wheel of Alonso, who then crashed into the wall, around the slow section, connecting the 2 long straights of the Miami International Autodrome, there would be no safety car. The safety car came out just as Norris was changing the tires because Piastri has done so the lap previously. They obviously didn't choose to double stack, and that was a real pity because I believe that Hamilton would be all over Norris, and then perhaps would have had a chance maybe to even have a go at Piastri. He's still Lewis Hamilton finished with the fastest lap of the race and a 3rd position, because that's how the sprint then finished. Norris came out of the pits because of the safety car, obviously, that gifted him about 10 seconds, which he then kind of lost when he stopped 1 lap later. Usually the cars were about 5 seconds or 3 to 5 seconds quicker on the soft or even on the medium tires on any dry compound than on the intermediate compound. So he got lucky for the 2nd year, and as a result, that's the race finish under the safety car. He of course peeled off on the last lap, and then let the drivers take the checkered flag, but there was simply too much damage, too many, accidents. So very, very exciting, and it really showed, that obviously me racing in Miami, you've seen, that sprint was also very, very contagious, and we had also a couple of scraps, with especially the Red Bull and the junior Red Bull drivers. It really shows just how challenging Miami is to win, and it's a fantastic track, a great addition to the Formula One calendar. And this is how the second sprint over here of the season and the second sprint at Miami International Autodrome finished this year. So let's take a look at it. So over here you can see that Lando Norris here classified obviously as the winner in front of Oscar Piastri. So took a lead, that lead in the championship is down by 1 point. Third, Lewis Hamilton for Ferrari, obviously only second behind, but I do believe he easily could have finished second. And it would have been interesting to see with 5 laps to go. Hamilton was roughly 5 seconds behind Piastri. Would he be able to catch him on the softs? I believe that, could have been Lewis Hamilton's second and Ferrari's second ever sprint victory, right? Yes, so, and I do believe, if Charles Leclerc was there, obviously he was ahead of Hamilton, he might have, for example, gotten the start that would put him, for example, in front of Russell, maybe in front of Antonelli, maybe Leclerc, if he didn't crash, he also could have been there. And both Leclerc and especially Hamilton definitely could have won the sprint race. So we've gotten very close, but again, the qualifying held us back. Fourth, Alexander Albon, that's not true, because Albon, under the safety car, he did not get, I believe, the 10 car length, between him and the other car. So he got penalized by 5 seconds, so he's out. So George Russell actually finished fourth for Mercedes. Fifth, Lance Stroll, you probably couldn't believe it. He always gets so lucky in these races. That's why he's outscoring Alonso 13-0 so far this season. And Liam Lawson, for that collision with Alonso, has gotten a penalty, so he drops back. So does Oliver Behrman, who also got penalized for his transgressions. So as a result, sixth, Yuki Tsunoda. For Red Bull, gotten at least some points, because obviously Verstappen gotten the 10-second penalty, which dropped him to dead last. That doesn't happen often to the 4-time champion, right? And Andrea Kimi Antonelli then at least promoted from 10 to 7, gotten 2 points. Pierre Gasly then the final point, obviously for Alpine, as lots of the drivers got promoted. So over here, lots to tell you about over here. So very, very exciting sprint race, and this is what it then means for the driver standing. So here in the Drivers' Championship 2025-2025 season, Oscar Piastri is leading with 106 points. Second, Lando Norris 97 points. Third, Max Verstappen 87 points. Losing touch over there, the defending champion. Four, George Russell 78 points. Fifth, still Charles Leclerc 47 points, but that was a costly mistake. Six, Andrea Kimi Antonelli. Well, hopefully during the qualifying for the race proper, he won't do as well, because he's on 40 points. Lewis Hamilton 7 with 37 points. We really believe that the target that we set to be 5th and 6th is gonna be there, but we gotta do better in qualifying. Hopefully plant it on pole, but definitely not let Antonelli take another pole. That was a big surprise. 8, Alexander Albon 20 points. 9, Esteban Ocon 14 points. 10, Lance Stroll 14 points, even though again a lot of them they just fallen kind of from the sky to him. 11, Oliver Behrman now 6 points. That is interesting, so that shouldn't be like that. There is a mistake, so that should be 11. Pierre Gasly, 7 points. You can see they still made a mistake here on the official Formula 1 website. And then we have 12, Nico Hülkenberg 6 points, and then 13, Oliver Behrman 6 points, because he got punished obviously in a sprint, so he wouldn't get that point. 14, Isaac Hadjar 5 points. 15, Carlos Sainz 5 points, and 16, Yuki Tsunoda 8 points. So guys, my God, they made a big mistake here. So Yuki Tsunoda is actually 11. So it's 11 Yuki Tsunoda 8 points, 12 Pierre Gasly 7 points, 13 Nico Hülkenberg 6 points, 14 Oliver Behrman 6 points, 15 Isaac Hadjar 5 points, 16 Carlos Sainz 5 points, and 17 Liam Lawson 0 points, 18 Fernando Alonso still with 0 points thanks to Lawson, 19 Jack Doohan 0 points, 20 at Gabriel Bortoleto 0 points. So you can see, the Miami break held with everything, including the Formula 1's official website. I really, I should have double checked that. I was like, what is that? What am I reading? And here for the Constructors' Championship, so McLaren is leading with 203 points, second Mercedes 118 points, And then we have third, the Red Bull Racing, 92 points. I guess the final time we will see them on the third place for the foreseeable future, because Scuderia Ferrari is coming for 84 points. And yeah, I do believe that we will get ahead of Red Bull and yeah, be third in the championship after the Miami Grand Prix. Fifth, Williams, 25 points. Sixth, Haas, 20 points. Seven, Aston Martin, 14 points. Very valuable points there. Eight, Racing Bulls, 8 points. Seven, Alpine, 7 points. Okay, yeah. And 10, Kick Sauber with 6 points. Yeah, so this is yeah, how it looks like. You know, the standings, I believe, you know, the constructor standings is correct. This was the team standings, right? I should correct myself, obviously. You know, Lance Stroll is now outscoring Alonso 14-0. That's even more impressive for Stroll. Okay, as he has gotten a 5th place instead of 6th, and yeah, this is how the sprint was. So bon appetit, we can you know, once again play the national anthem of Italy for the Scuderia Ferrari victory. But you know, a fantastic race. You know, all the races here in Miami are so enjoyable. Great track, great design, and all I can say is that we cannot wait for the Grand Prix. We will now go to the qualifying and then the Grand Prix itself, and hopefully we will plant it on pole position and dominate the Miami Grand Prix to show who will be the champions, right? Let's go, Forza Ferrari. The golden winning trophies and medals are waiting for the winning drivers. And yes, you know, in about 20 hours, you know, obviously from the sprint, well, I should say about 28 hours from the sprint, there is the Grand Prix, and I really cannot wait for it. You know, greatly enjoy racing here in the United States for the first time this year, and there are many more races to come, right? So let's end the first fourth of the 2025-2025 FIA Formula 1 season on a high with a resounding 1-2 victory. We can definitely do it. We were flying the fastest car, obviously in the dry conditions. Scuderia Ferrari, let's go! Forza Ferrari, let's race! This is Miami, let's go for a victory! Forza Ferrari!